and raw conversation.
Navigating the natural and theology, influencing people to find purpose and live with quality. We descended to Christ, just acknowledge me. The sacred scriptures tell us, throw down your nets, come and follow me. A leadership that's anointed and appointed. When leading God's people, sometimes you become disappointed. You do what you can, you do what you know. You give it to God and let it go, go, go.
Welcome to The Real with Ross. Today we will have an opportunity to talk with Dr. Charles Goodman. He is the pastor of historic Tabernacle Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. He is joining us today to share his ministry, his life, and insights with us. Welcome.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it, man. On The Real with Ross, I finally made it. Like this
Please.
is a highlight of ministry, of life, and legacy. I feel like it's time. I can go to heaven from here, so I appreciate it.
And y'all see his face while he's coming.
No, I'm ready.
This is just how he is all the time. He's a great person to be around, though. So as we get going today, let's start by sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks, Drew, man. Once again, I love this platform and opportunity to come and share, man. Much respect for your ministry and the work that you're doing. Not just when you were here in Jersey, man, but the work you was doing in Baltimore. And so this is dope. Man, for me, that's an interesting question. Ministry has always kind of, I guess, innately been around my life, even though I wouldn't be what you considered a career ministry person.
Okay.
I was adopted by my grandparents at 14 months of age, by my maternal grandparents. All I knew was church because of their perspective and their upbringing for me. It's interesting. My grandmother, who passed a few months ago, my mom just sent me a file they found in the house. She kept every award I had from elementary, middle, high school, college.
Wow.
And what my mom didn't know is that I also found something where my grandma kept pictures of when I was a kid preaching in a vacuum cleaner, playing a guitar, and like jumping off of it was the craziest thing. So what I was told is that around 8 o'clock, I start showing this propensity to do ministry.
Okay.
Right, coming home, putting on my grandfather's T-shirt, and making my grandma and granddad sit there and I re-preach the sermon.
Okay.
Right, so from what they tell me since 8 years old, that's kind of been what I've been. Most people don't know this, but I grew up United Holy Church.
Really?
So I have a very deep Pentecostal background.
Okay. I can see that.
And I was in United Holy Church to about high school and made the switch to attending a Baptist church, and it was purely, simply, it's going to sound funny. That's where the kids went, people in high school. The girls went to the Baptist church,
Okay.
right? Like, so making that shift and that change. But after that, going to college, Wake Forest University, and while I was at Wake Forest, I kind of had my own come to Jesus, what I want to do. Because when I went to school, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. My whole time I thought I was going to be a lawyer because I'd never seen ministry be sustainable where someone could make it a living. Even if I considered ministry as a calling, I never thought it would be a full-time thing.
Okay.
You know, I thought I'd be a lawyer and then preach on the side. That was at most. But then my senior year, I got diagnosed with ALS and had my own come to Jesus moment, and that kind of really spurred me from really accepting this kind of call to ministry. And even at that point, I still didn't know exactly what it looked like. You know, at that time, hearing that you have 2 years to live is kind of a jarring experience. And so I just give it all I got, be as committed as possible. And through that calling and that acceptance of that moment produced me to just take this thing step by step. I'll be very honest with you. I didn't see this when I accepted.
Okay.
Whatever this is now for me, I didn't see it. It's almost as if God gave me progressive things along the journey, that every step birthed a greater understanding, a wider view of the possibilities that could happen, but it was really predicated upon the acceptance of every step along the way and just being faithful and committed. So I said all to say, I'm 21 at that time. I make my calling. I get licensed, start seminary. At the time, I'm still believing I ain't got much longer to live, but I'm going to be as faithful to see it as all the way through as possible. Get ordained at 22. Then I get my first assignment to pastor a church in Alabama about 23. And so from then, it's just been this kind of crazy trajectory. Wow, this makes 21 years of pastoral ministry for me. Man, I didn't even really think, I guess. I've been 17 at Tab, 3.5 at Yale. Okay. So, I mean, that's the short thing to kind of get it started. I know as we continue the conversation, more will kind of be brought out from that. But that's really kind of this genesis. It really was this acceptance of a moment that I think was already there, but I needed like this burning bush experience to kind of really face not only mortality, but ministry. And ministry always wins. I think that'll be a theme for me. In every aspect of life, ministry wins.
Gotcha.
And that means sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but ministry gonna win. If you understand what I'm saying.
Sure.
So,
So how have you defied the odds with regard to your diagnosis and your health?
Yeah, you know, when back then, man, it's so wild because I went to Wake Forest University, and the craziest thing, the number one ALS doctor in the world was a doctor at Wake Forest.
Oh, wow.
So even then, he had a 2-year wait for patients. But because of my stature and standing at Wake Forest, I was able to see him within 2 weeks. They put me on a regimen, medicine at that time, which was the thing. But typically, there's no medical help for it. It just kind of wastes away. It just really is a nerve muscle disease. Your mind is fresh. You just literally, your body doesn't respond anymore. And I had to go through my old things. People may not even realize even now I have a lot of issues on my right side, or, you know, I can't write. So a lot of things I have to do, I memorize. That was birthed out of knowing that, you know, I had these limitations, but I wanted to still maximize. I didn't realize I had photographic memory until I had that. So it kind of really birthed that thing. So what it was, honestly, just been a lot of prayer. And I believe God healed me miraculously. And to this day, doctors have not figured out why. To me, I know it goes back to the time when I made that promise to God. If it's 2 years, to just keep it. I'll give you all I got for those 2 years. That's why for me, ministry is not an occupation. It's not a career. It really is my life. And I feel in my heart that I am alive. My life is tied to that promise I made. And so that's really the piece. Okay. So honestly, in my heart, I really believe that God healed me miraculously. And because of that gratitude, nothing in my life is higher or has more priority than ministry for me.
You and I had a conversation when I was talking about doing a second sight. I think that kind of fits into this piece here. You talked about how you condition everything in your preaching ministry and your life as running in this marathon called ministry. How every piece is designed to be such where it's sacrificial, it's regimented, it's dedication. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. For me, and it's funny because, you know, being an athlete growing up, you know, I think you have to prepare your body. So I take that same approach when it comes to preaching. One of my greatest influences from the physical aspect of ministry is Dr. William Curtis. Some years ago, we had a conversation. He says he trains for preaching. He treats the preaching year like an athletic year, to the point where he knows when he's on, he knows when he's off. He takes August off at that time. Now he's a little more lax because he's older. But that really, it sparked, because as an athlete, I know what it is to train. Prepare your body. And really anybody who's in the athletes know that one of the most critical times is your off season, right? You're never out of shape. You got to always stay in shape. So physically, that was a piece. Mentally, you know, that's been one of my desires for my academic pursuit. Every degree, and I've got 7 thus far, has been to add tools to the toolbox to be a better practitioner, preacher, pastor. There's no wasted things for me. I didn't just do something just to be doing it. No, there was an intent and there was an outcome that I was trying to do. My MDiv, because I understood I need the practicality of things. My Master's of Management or MDiv or my MBA, because I understand that organizational leadership is important, right? From my DMin in preaching, from my PhD in leadership, from the thing I did at Yale. So everything mentally was about, in school and education, was really about preparing myself to be the best in my field, the best preacher, practitioner, pastor I could be. Sure. So that approach for me is everything. Like I don't have anything, because in that way, I even when I played basketball, I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the most athletic, but I'd be doggone if I let anybody outwork me. Right? I studied the game. I'm playing all day long. I'm trying to figure out angles. I knew your plays. I knew my plays. Because at the end of the day, I feel like to be over-prepared is to be prepared. Yeah.
So you have 5 services on Sunday?
We did before COVID. Okay. We're at 4 now. We're getting ready to go back to 5.
Okay.
And we're getting ready to add our 3rd location. Okay. That has been something we've had on hold since COVID. Craziest thing about that 3rd location, Drew, was the 3rd week of March. Here's the funny thing. Our dear friend, Dr. Danielle Brown, had just preached for me. 2nd Sunday of March, 2020, for my Women's Day. We had signed the contract for our 3rd location that Wednesday. And Thursday, the world shut down.
Wow.
So we're just in the process. It's so funny. I just talked to my exec, and they just filling out our location. We found the location. So we're hopefully going to begin it to start doing stuff monthly, starting within a few months. And then I'm hopefully going to bring it on full online by January.
Okay.
It's our 140th church anniversary next year. So it'll probably be a good thing to kind of fold into. But this has been a thing I've been sitting on for 4 years, and I'm kind of antsy, and it's like really hard. But yeah, we're going to go back to 5.
Okay.
It's been really crazy even up until this point this year. We ain't even got all the way in June yet. And we've had over 300 some persons who've joined our church. So people are coming back to church.
Yeah.
And I want to steward it. I realize in ministry, you get moments in ministry where you can't overthink it. Just do. And I always tell my team and my staff and my leadership, I was like, yo, what's the worst thing happens if we do something and it doesn't work? We just go back to doing what we're doing now. It's not a loss, right? I'm always willing to try, experiment. What's the worst can happen?
Yeah.
Right? I'd rather fail forward. John Maxwell has that book some years ago. It was very powerful to me. Fail forward. I'm going to try. So, yeah, we're going back to 5. It's been, because actually 4 is worse than 5.
Really? Why?
The longer wait between services.
Okay.
I like the boom, 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 boom. It's a different rhythm when it's 5 versus 4. Okay. And I want the 5 rhythm back. It just was easier to stay up.
Okay. So talk about your conditioning on Sundays for 4 or 5 services. Yeah. I know that, when you and I talk, your staff is in a certain routine with you to keep you on certain things. You drink, don't drink, eat, don't eat. Yeah. Talk about that.
I'm an athlete that preaches, right? A preacher that takes it at an athletic event. So Saturday, I'm regimented. By the time I go home, I'm here now in Jersey working, sharing with Dr. Brown. And so when I get home tomorrow, I got to go by the office. I got to pray. I have a routine I do on Saturdays. I'm washing clothes. I'm taking a nap, and I'm just getting my mind mentally prepared. Whatever time I fall asleep on Saturday, 5 o'clock, my staff is going to call me. 5:30, my staff is going to call me. 5:45, I'm on my Peloton bike for about 15, 20 minutes. Go upstairs, take my supplements, use the bathroom, get my mental self together, shower, dress, finish up notes, send them what the final thing is, and the ride is there to pick me up by 7:15. Okay. Going to church. Church starts at 7:15. By the time I get there, they know my time is I'm going to be up by 8 or 8:02, and then we on and popping. I typically eat my breakfast between the first 2 services, and then so at 7:15 is our first service, 9 o'clock is our second service at West, 10:30 at Main, and then we close out 12:30 at West. I eat between the 7:15 and 9, and then it's so crazy. Y'all, please don't judge me too bad, but going to my last service, I do a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Okay.
Like my staff eats those. Give me a little sugar, energy to finish out, and then that's it.
Okay. So you arrived at Tabernacle, Augusta, one location.
Yeah.
Very historic church.
Yeah. Followed a great pastor, Otis
Yeah.
Moss III, who was there 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from that, it has blossomed into a much larger church with multi-site. Talk about the transitions that you've gone through
Yeah.
to kind of get to that place. I think that one of the things that younger preachers see is the finished product, but they don't often get a chance to see the years of work that you put into something, the labor, the toil, the blood, sweat, and tears, you know, kind of make it more of a journey for them rather than arriving to the end.
Yeah. That's a great question. And when I answer this, I always have to be honest about my answer, because I do think that ministry is contextual. Tabernacle was already an amazing church before I got there. Anybody who tries to act like a church didn't have history before you, it's just crazy. We're just building upon what's already been there. Tabernacle, we're getting ready to experience, we're 139 years this year. I'm the 10th pastor. So that speaks of stability and it speaks of consistency. They also had long tenure pastors. Moss was before me 9 years. Before him, Charles Spencer Hamilton was there 40 years. Started by Charles T. Walker, who was there 39 years. It's funny, there's a running joke in my church, I'm C3. So they had Charles Thomas Walker, Charles Spencer Hamilton, then Charles Edward Goodman.
Okay.
And we're literally the 3 longest tenure pastors is Charles's.
Oh, wow.
So I have to say that because I think that it is unfair to present to people as if I just took this nothing church to another level. No, the church has a tremendous history. Some of the nation's greatest pulpiteers have pastored Tabernacle. So I wanted to be very clear about that. What I will say is Tabernacle is unique in a way that very few churches historically have multiple growth spurts. So when Charles Thomas Walker started the church in 1885, it was one of the largest churches in the United States, in the South, particularly led by an African American in history. So you have these moments where, man, there was multiple growth spurts in a church. That's rare. Historically, most churches don't have multiple growth spurts. They may have one, and then when they hit their zenith or their pinnacle, then there is a decline. Very rare do you have multiple. Tab has had that. So I'm very grateful for that. It's a very pastor-led, pastor-focused church. So a lot of my issues initially would not be because they didn't understand pastoral leadership. Every leader in that space knows their roles. I was grateful enough to have a place that understood leadership, respected leadership. Now, does that mean they agree with everything? Absolutely not, right? But there was never a disagreeable spirit to the point where we're going to try to be out of line. Does that mean that I didn't have detractors? Absolutely not. Does that mean there was not naysayers? Absolutely not. But what it means is the culture of the church is one that this is who we are, right? Church has never been split. And the unique thing about Tab is that they have always taken on the personality of their pastor. So whatever the pastor is, whatever the heart of the pastor is, style of the pastor, they morph into that. And that's been my experience. Coming there 17 years ago, man, it's amazing. Very traditional church when I got there. And once again, I've tried to weigh and lean into the unique concoction, which is my spiritual experience. Raised United Whole Church, so I'm Pentecostal. Love the Baptist perspective, my education, these kind of things. I wanted to bring my full self in there. So I also understood initially when I got there, Drew, and this has been something that I hold dear, and even when I mentor pastors, I said, don't discount the fact that your Sunday morning is your greatest evangelistic tool, right? If people don't enjoy your Sunday morning, they're pretty much not going to connect or partner with your church. So create such a great experience. And I knew we had a very traditional approach to worship. I wanted to expand that, have a little more spontaneity when it came to worship. I'm a musician. I grew up playing organ, drums, congos. So I understood how important music is. And when music, worship, and word is married, I just think it's just an incredible kind of combination. And so we're just really kind of plugging away. Got some continuity in the worship. Because it was small stuff. Like when I got there, we would have a musician group for the 8 o'clock service and a musician group for 11. That just was very bad consistency for me because I need to feel. I'm a very feel person.
Okay.
I want to feel the worship. I want to feel where we're going. So that was one of the first things I do was to really try to win that worship tension or worship war. So we did, and got it to a good place. And then, man, we just really hit some good rhythmic spots. But the crazy thing is, Drew, that a lot of our growth was precipitated early during some of my worst moments. I lost my grandfather in '08. So once I get to the church, I'm then having to deal with that tremendous loss. Then around 2011, I go through one of the worst years of my life. Staff concerns, had a very difficult staff departure. I had some leadership betrayal, some folk that were in leadership that I chose to be in leadership, that left and caused some tension.
Okay.
And then I had neck and spine fusion surgery.
Oh, wow.
I had a bad stalker situation. So it was the worst. Like 2011 was the worst year per person. I probably was even in what I couldn't even diagnose at that point, depression. And the craziest thing is, to this day, that's still the highest year that we had people join. I think I had over 800 some people join.
That's incredible.
In 2011, but it was my worst personal thing. And the crazy thing is, by the time I got to the end of the year, I had a neck and spine fusion surgery. I'm having to end out the year and start the new year with a neck brace on. And by the time that year ended, Drew, I made this prayer. I was really kind of upset with God. And all this stuff is happening. Over 800 some people joining, all this stuff. And I'm mad because I'm like, this sucks. And I asked God. And God said, what did you pray for me last year? My closing prayer in 2010 was, God, make me a great pastor and preacher for you. That was my literal prayer. Final prayer that I ended out 2010 in. And then precipitated everything that happened in 2011. And God said, what did you ask me for? This is the process. I didn't understand it. I hated it. But I think that began this kind of wave.
Yeah.
And one thing that I realized as a leader about me is I have no fear when it comes to ministry.
Okay.
Let's do it. It's what I do. I may not do a lot of things great in my life. Ministry, having a feel for what's next, learning how to push buttons, that's what I do. You know, Lance Watson talks about how there's 3 categories of pastors. There are maintainers, there's decliners, and there's growers. He said most people are in the maintaining position. They can maintain. He said there's a large contingency of decliners that no matter what they get, they're going to make it worse. But he said the smallest group, the rarest group, but the ones that we aspire to be are the growers. And so I'm a grower. I do this and I have a way to grow, right? It's just innately something that I've kind of been blessed with. And so I just knew when to orchestrate what to do. And then here's the truth, man. A lot of times when it comes to church growth, the Lord got to breathe on it. But I also say that you can set yourself up for growth structure to allow God's power, God's kind of growth to happen by you having the right foundation and the right structure. I'm a big structure guy.
Okay.
I want to have the right infrastructure to make sure that we can hold all the things we're trying to do.
Yeah. So you're a person that pastors a mega church, you lead doctoral group, you're preaching itinerantly on the road. What's some advice that you can give to someone who desires that kind of life but doesn't understand the sacrifice?
Avoid it at all costs. No, I think, man, it's the wildest thing because I get that question. I don't know how I manage it. But what I will say is I don't believe in balance. I believe in synergy. I don't believe there's such a thing as balance in life, period. Nothing's 50-50. Synergy says that I'm having to figure out how to navigate it as it comes. Because life may be 51-49. Most of the times it's 90-10. Sometimes it's 99.5 and a half. You just got to learn how to navigate it. One of the greatest books I got was given to me by Bishop Claude Alexander. about 1 or 2 years into my pastorate at Tabernacle. And he gave me a book entitled Juggling Elephants. And it talks about a ringmaster at a circus. And the success of the ringmaster is to know what circle they're in. And he always told me that. And that's one of the things, that when you're in a certain circle, be in that circle, right? Be present in that circle. And you can't do everything. You know, I had a conversation with someone the other day. I'm not sure if you can have it all. And just as much as we talk about the positives and things that we want, Drew, here's a question that most people never ask themselves. What am I willing to live without?
Yeah, that's good.
Because everything you just asked me, you talking about the size of a church, itinerant ministry, you know, doctoral work, all that stuff. It costs me. It costs me. It costs me relationships. I'm single. Not that I couldn't be married, but I know that to be in a marriage, that individual, she'd be miserable. Because my focus is in so much other stuff. You would have to figure out, how do I fit into this? And that's not easy. So it's cost me. It's cost me time with my family. You know, my family had to figure out how to share him. That wasn't easy for them, right? It's caused some things. And I think the more critical question, people don't want to ask that. They always ask about what they want to live with. No one wants to face the hard question that with success, with those things, what am I willing to live without? And here's the truth, and I can say this in all sincerity, I have no regrets. Are there things that I'm like, I wonder if that could have happened, but I don't regret anything.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Now you know where we're going next.
Yeah.
So how have you balanced or managed the pastorate being a single man?
Yeah. Drew, you understand this. I think at the end of the day, carefully and with discernment, I'm a human, right? Try not to present a something of myself that is not true. Like, right? I'm a man. I think women are incredible, right? It was never God's intent for me to be married, but that doesn't mean that I don't yearn companionship. And so I feel like you just got to kind of figure out what you can do. Never try to bring shame to yourself into ministry. One of the mothers at my first church, she said it this way. She was like, you know, Pastor, just don't embarrass us. Right? But I always tell people, just like you have concerns and issues in relationships, I'm not immune from that as well.
Right.
And you just try your best to know that I still want to honor God, right? Am I gonna make some mistakes? Absolutely. But you still want to just kind of honor God. So I've been gracious enough to have some incredible congregations from Pleasant View, my first church, to Tabernacle, who I didn't surprise them. They know I'm single, right? Didn't feel any undue pressure from them to like, you need to be married. We need a married pastor. Now that may be some people's thing, but that was never the thing where you have to be married to lead us, to share with us, you know, and Pastor, we love you, and you know, whatever that finds in your life, you do. So it hasn't been something hard because I don't really think about it because it's all I've ever been, right? So it's one thing to be single and never been married. I think probably the greatest question we need to ask some people is, what is it like to be single after you've been married?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't have any thing to compare being married because I've never been married.
Right.
You know, so that's why that question is not hard to me. It's what I've been. It's not like I've only been this way. I think the problem or challenge will come talking to someone who's been married and now is single. That will be the real one to really consider.
And I guess even now, because of the growth of your congregation, so many new people have come in since you've been there. Many of them, you're probably their first pastor.
Period, yeah.
Right, so they've never experienced a pastor being married.
Yeah.
Probably the greatest comparison is when you got to Tabernacle with Pastor Moss having had a family,
Yeah.
and you not having a family.
Yeah.
For some people, they
It was different. And you know
yeah.
what's so funny? I'm glad you said that, because that was probably the biggest and hardest transition when I first got there. Because when I got to Tabernacle, Moss had already had a national reputation. He traveled extensive, even as much as I travel now, still pales in comparison to his itinerary back then. Moss was gone, which spoke to his gift, his name. So when I came to Tab, and I wasn't as busy on the road like I am now, but even back then, there was a yearning for my presence that I could not understand. Because in my mind, here's the crazy thing, I was judging us mano y mano. Here's what I had to learn. When they were missing Moss, it wasn't him they were necessarily missing, because he had a proxy for him, Monica and the kids. So he could be gone, but as long as they saw Monica there, it was. So it took me a while to realize that's what it is.
Okay.
Because I'm not even gone as much as he is. But he had a proxy.
Yeah.
He had a wife and children that even though he was gone, he was still represented.
Yeah.
And I had to understand and come to grips that when I'm gone, I'm gone.
Yeah.
There's no proxy in my place. So that was eye-opening, because I just was really like, what am I doing? Why? I mean, he's not here. I'm here, but then I had to realize they were missing really the Moss family.
Yeah.
And I do think there is something to that. I think churches have this tendency to want to be a part in the family of the pastor, the first lady, the children, those things that they want to be a part of, or if it's a female pastor in the husband or the children. There's something to be said about them wanting to kind of feel that closeness to them through not just that individual, not just the her as the pastor, him as the pastor, but through their families. And that creates another layer of connectivity that as a single pastor we just don't have.
Yeah. But I mean, we also have to shout out Tabernacle for 18 years ago calling a single pastor, because there were waves like 40 years ago when my pastor was called to a church. They were called in their early 20s. Many of them weren't married, and that was an okay thing, because they were seen as boy preachers, like they weren't calling a lot of women back then, unfortunately, right? So it's more like the boy preacher stage. Then there went a stage where everybody had to be married to land anywhere that was notable. I think we've finally gotten back into the wave now where people are not as concerned about marital status, because I think that some people realize now it doesn't matter whether the person's married or not. If people are going to get into something, they're going to get into it either way.
You know what's interesting, Drew? The 3 candidates for Tabernacle when I was up for it were single. All were single.
Wow. Okay.
Me, Corey Jones, who's at Tabernacle in Burlington.
Okay.
Ron Saylor, who ended up getting married right before the process.
Okay.
But we were all initially, as a top 3 candidates, single.
Okay.
So
they knew exactly what they were open
and
to.
they asked the question, and I didn't run away from it. I said, well, if singleness is such a bad thing, or being married, then I guess Paul and Jesus wouldn't be considered for your pastor either, So if that's the issue, then let's approach it. Or if you think it's about integrity or whatever, you can be married and not have integrity, right? So don't judge it based on status. Judge it based on the spirituality and the kind of thing. So once again, shout out to Tab. They took that leap at that time, and I agree with you. I think now it's more. There's more single pastors than I've probably ever been cognitive or even knowing.
Do you think that singleness has given you more opportunities to be concentrated on some of the things you would not have?
It gives me more flexibility.
Yeah.
I'm here. I was in Atlanta last night to preach. Flew here to Jersey, go back tomorrow. So yes, and I'm going, it's just me. I don't have to check in. Because I do think there is something to be said about when you have other responsibilities and family, relationship, marriage, that needs your time and energy. And something's going to, I don't want to use the word suffer, but suffer is the only word that comes to my mind. But you can't do everything at all times. Like there's that movie out there, all thing or everything or something every time. It was a movie that won an award a few years ago, movie, where it was like everything was happening at the same time. And I'm like, yo, that's what life would be. But I can't. So my focus has been on ministry. It has benefited me because I don't think that I would have been able to do as much with another responsibility on my hand, which is family, marriage, and those things. But, you know.
Yeah. So let's talk about do as much from this perspective. You already had a doctorate. You were already in a very successful church setting. You go back to get a PhD. Explain your thought process there. Your
COVID.
rationale. Okay.
I mean, seriously, like, so when I started that PhD in Anderson, and it's so funny, my boys hit me up about it, Pointer and Parks, because Michael Didway had approached them about a PhD in leadership that they were starting that was strictly online, and it's August 2020. I wasn't going nowhere. Okay, let's do it. And what they initially thought was only going to be 8 people in this program ended up being 80.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, they had no clue. But once again, we weren't going nowhere. It's COVID. And even at the time, think about it, August 2020, think about it. We really still didn't know the length of what we were in. I think most of us didn't know. When COVID first hit in that March of 2020, we were thinking a few weeks.
6 to 8 at tops.
We were going to definitely be back by Easter of that year.
Yes.
Who would have thought 2 years?
Yeah, no.
2.5, 3 years?
I'd never thought.
Bruh. So when it came around, man, it was great. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't traveling. I always thought to myself, you know, I have a desire to be a president of a college or institution, HBCU preferably. So I was thinking, you know, I was already trying to set up some things. I had the D-man, but let me try to get a more PhD. So when it came around, I was like, hey, let's try it. And so I'm grateful that I did it. It gave me time to focus on it, which is why I was able to get out of it in the time that I was.
Okay.
Because there was nothing else to do but do that.
Sure.
And prepare sermons to preach in front of cameras. I wasn't traveling nowhere. I was at home.
So what was the PhD journey like for you?
I enjoyed it because it was a passionate part of me. I love leadership. Preaching grows people, but leadership grows churches. So I love leadership. All aspects of leadership is important. Once again, everything goes back to me as an athlete. I grew up being a point guard. Leadership, right? Like I understand what that is. I've always been that guy that leads. I don't know why. It's innate within me. I'm naturally a leader. I see problems, I fix them. Like that's just how I've been wired. So to be able to study that was my heart. You know, the funny thing, Drew, when I first started it, I was going to really focus on the tie between the black institutions, the black church, and the black school in times of crisis. You know this now dealing with PhD. You don't want to be too wide. So I realized that is just too much. That's what made me focus in on transformational leadership and adaptive leadership for the black church in times of crisis from a certain time dealing with the pre and post COVID phenomenon.
Okay.
So I was to whittle it down. I kind of got more specific because I think if you're going to succeed in PhD, you need to get it as narrow as possible. You don't want to be too wide, too much research. As limited as that was, that's 204 pages of my final project on this one particular thing through this qualitative research on transformational leadership, dissecting the Carter model. How does we introduce our own, because black church leadership creates its own uniqueness. I think that we need to not just study how black church produces great preachers, but also produces great leaders, because we know how to navigate and go through some stuff. So that was some of the fruit from it. So that's what happened for me. I enjoyed it, and I was able to knock it out, grind it out, and it's probably one of the best journeys I've ever been to. Now listen, I was so grateful to be through with it.
I'm sure.
Grateful to be through with it. Yeah, so I'm not doing it again.
That's your last degree, you done?
I hope so, man. My staff don't believe me. I hope so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I need challenges. I get turned on by challenges.
Okay.
I enjoy growing. I stated that earlier when I got that package from my mom that showed everything that my grandma kept for me. It really just kind of sparked again, like, doggone, I'm an overachiever.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff.
It makes sense. I mean, she kept it.
I'm gonna find the
I'm
video and
overachiever.
put it on this.
I'm an overachiever.
That was a lot of
I
stuff.
will take it. I'm an overachiever.
I thought the
I'm an
video was
overachiever.
gonna stop. It never stopped.
I'm an overachiever, man. It dawned on me. I am an overachiever. But I will say I think that was birthed in the environment. My grandparents just instilled in me early, you can do and be anything.
Yeah.
They never limited me. They always told me you can do and be anything. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I believed it. That's as crazy as it sounds. I believed it. And yeah.
So H. Beecher Hicks, and this is where we'll close, has this book, Preaching Through a Storm. You talked about 3 at least distinctive moments in your life, to include very difficult grief journeys. One is more recent than the other. How have you been able to lead and preach through both of those experiences?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. Grace of God has been extremely good for me. Man, preaching, pastoring, I go back to it, all ties to that, is life for me. For me not to do it, I am miserable. The sustaining grace God has graced me with in those moments has been therapeutic and encouraging for me. So even in the preaching moment when I'm supposed to be encouraging others, I feel like I'm encouraging myself. Those 2 significant deaths for me, 2008, 2024, my granddad, my grandma. This latest one just really has been difficult. Really hard. Also on top of that, I haven't really talked about this a lot publicly. I was in the process of adopting a little kid at the end of last year, and I had to stop the adoption because of information they did not disclose. So the kid had a little more emotional, behavioral issues that could allow him to thrive in the environment that I was trying to create for him. So I had to deal with back-to-back. That was crushing. And the only thing that sustained me is the ability to still stand every week. When we was going through COVID, Drew, most of my friends were pre-recording. I couldn't. I asked my team, can we keep the rhythm of Sunday going? I didn't pre-record at all in COVID. I probably pre-recorded maybe twice. But I needed the week by week stand to continue to mentally, emotionally, spiritually prepare. But I needed that rhythm of standing to keep standing. So I would do 2 services in COVID, 9 and 11. Part of that was also I wanted to keep all my staff employed. And my musicians. But man, it was the best thing. Because man, I didn't want to I wanted to still be in a rhythm of standing every Sunday. There is nothing greater to me than Sunday morning. That moment of worship, that time to proclaim. If the Lord gave me a choice of when and where to die, let me die there.
Wow.
Let me give it out one last more again. Let me go see the Jesus.
We at least need to take you to the office.
Listen, no, let me go right there. No, but that's how much it means to me. That's how I get such from the moment. That when he crafted and created me, this is it. So through it all, my remedy, my safe space is preaching and pastoring. And I can't see myself doing anything else.
Wow.
Right? I can't sell cars. I can't, this is it. This is all I got, right? It's almost like my hair, right? Like I'm gonna be bald till I die. This is my funeral haircut. If I take my hat off, I'm bald. So for me, that's what it's been. But I also will say this, and maybe this is a good word for younger preachers or even older preachers. I also understand my humanity and my vulnerability. So I'm grateful that I had wise counsel, pastors that I could talk to, got a therapist that even now, every other week, I'm able to share and do, because you need an outlet. I need an outlet. Now, I'm hoping that I hold myself. I got friends. I need to do better when it comes to vacation and taking time off, and I'm trying to do better at that.
Golf trip.
I need to do that.
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach, I'm hearing, is dope.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Orlando, Hawaii, I want to do. We talked about that piece.
Yeah.
But that's it. I would tell that if there's anything I could tell a younger preacher, if I can go back, I wish I would have built in more me time, because I was so consumed. Because I was thinking on that time I was working on borrowed time. To a certain degree, I give myself grace for my younger years, because at that time I had a clock ticking in my head. Every day in my mind was taking me to that end day. So I didn't waste a day. Now, on the other side of it, I understand what was driving me. Now, on the other side of that is, if it's going to be that day, it's going to be that day. I need to do more things that I enjoy. I love golf, love traveling. I love sporting events, and try to figure out what that looks like. Once again, it's not balance, synergy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So last thing, I do this with everybody. So look in your camera and just give us some words of wisdom to leave with today.
Stay trusting, stay faithful. For those of you who are in ministry, I really believe this, and God has graced me with this, because I do think we can oftentimes get consumed with our gift and enamored with our gift. I believe this to my heart. God can never elevate you over your level of honor. Whoever God assigns in your life to honor them, because God can never lift you higher than your level of honor. And that's in everything. Honor the relationships God graces you with. Honor the assignments God puts into your hands. And just honor those who God assigns for you to honor. I am where I'm at now, not because of how gifted a preacher or pastor, as I really believe that God can trust me, because he knows that whatever he puts in my hands and in my heart, I'm going to honor, and God can lift based upon that level. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Dr. Charles Goodman, thank you so much.
Peace.
Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation for spiritual teachers.
The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now.
Real and raw conversation.